Welcome to Intimate Conversations, where we support you in healing heartbreak so you can live fully embodied, unapologetically, and deliciously free, being exactly who you are. We are sponsored by Magic Mind, my morning elixir that I swear gives me more focus, expands my joy, and puts an extra spring in my step. So, okay, you luscious creature, it is time to get intimate. Hello, you delicious people. Welcome back to another episode of Intimate Conversations with a return guest. How long has it been? Maybe a decade? How long have we known each other?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's been longer than a decade. I think we just don't, either one of us want to admit it.
Want to admit it's probably more like 15 years.
Yeah, probably.
Probably, right? Because, So this is the amazing Scot McKay. He has another, you're very handsome, but a very beautiful other half, Emily. She's not with us today. But let me tell you a bit about Scot. And then let's dive into some really delicious conversations around masculinity, about the difference between getting versus attracting, deserving what you want, and probably a lot of other naughty, fun, awesome shit we always seem to get up to. So this amazing man, Scot McKay, who you can find out, by the way, at scotmckay.net. Those will be in the show notes. He is a professional dating and relationship coach. He's an adventure traveler, a conference speaker, a media personality, and a podcast host. I was just on his podcast a few months ago. And both Scot and Emily, they reach a global audience of over 300,000 and are authors of 10, count them, 10 books between them. And they've been featured by over 400 media outlets worldwide, including MTV, ABC, NBC, CBS, Forbes. You get the picture. They are both Travelers Century Club members, having traveled to well over 100 countries, and proudly world school their two youngest children. And they are avid BMX racers. Emily, daughter Sarah, and son John are all champion #1 plate holders. Whew, that's quite the bio. Welcome back, great man. Thank you so much for having me on a few months ago and for being a return guest. How are you?
Well, first of all, right back at you, great lady. It's a lot of fun always to talk to you. I think you and I have probably collaborated on interviews such as this, probably a couple dozen times over the years.
Yeah.
And I think every one of them has been just immensely entertaining, and we drop knowledge on people.
Thank you. They always are full of mic drops.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first tell them in a brief way, because you're certainly very credible with your bio, but you also walk your talk with your beautiful wife, Emily. So give us a little story of give us some hope about what's possible with relationship, because you really are walking your talk with her.
Well, first of all, Alana, men have to appreciate women and women have to appreciate men. I know you probably feel the same thing. You talk to so many people and they're like, the other gender is a bunch of jerks. They all lie. They're all terrible people and they've cheated me and they've done nothing but hurt me for my whole life. Can you find me a nice husband or wife? And the answer is, because your attitude is that of fear rather than love, straight up. Yeah. And what you're doing is it'll become a strangely apparent or maybe even camouflage to you. Some people walk through their entire life, unfortunately, oblivious to all this. It'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy because all the good people out there, all the people who mean well, all the people who respect the other gender, they're going to say, oh, hell no, I'm not going to get in a relationship with someone who doesn't even like everyone with my chromosome structure.
Yeah, right.
Now, the interesting thing is a woman may be sexually attractive and she can think, well, guys just want to use me for sex. And so guys come along and they'll have sex with her because she's sexy. But hell no, they're not getting into a relationship with her. So Emily and I have both had the benefit of being survivors of a bad first marriage to someone who was schizophrenic and enacted it out on us, doomed marriages. But neither one of us, and this is extremely important, this will be a takeaway for many, Alana, neither one of us have a victim mentality.
Yeah.
We have the survivor mentality. If there's something I can own, if there's something that is my fault, right? All the marketing says it's not your fault. Well, guess what? It is. Even though everybody told me there's nothing I could have done to be a better husband or father with my first wife, I said, well, you know what? I want to own everything I could have done better. and I
Thank you.
worked on it, and I
Yeah.
wanted to become a better person. And
Yeah.
I wanted to do what I call deserve what I want.
Yeah.
I want to be the kind of man a woman is looking for. And the next thing you know, I started attracting women who weren't crazy. I started attracting women who were sweet and kind,
Yes.
women who meant well, women who weren't, I know it's a buzzword nowadays, but aren't these manipulative, selfish, narcissistic people?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't. And I met my lovely wife, and she is a survivor. She is a doer. She takes ownership, extreme ownership of
Yeah.
her life. And together we live a life of giving, and 1 + 1 in that context doesn't equal 2, it equals 3 or 5 or 2,000.
Yes. Yes. I love this. I love this. From when we first met all those years ago, even though you've known me to go through one divorce and then another divorce, a victim of neither. Well, originally, I'll be honest, I was totally a victim. And then I'm like, well, that doesn't work, nor does it feel very good. And then after the second divorce, was like, okay, the only one in common is me. Let's do some work. And then I realized, wow, there is a lot that I can own, a lot I can apologize for, but also apologize to myself. It was about, that's when I got into intimacy, because it was very much everything on the inside was being projected outwardly. So I could clean up my messes on the outside, but the biggest mess I had to clean up was inside of my heart with little Alana, right? So how, in terms of this, deserve what you want, to be deserving means we need to know that we're worthy, we're enough, we can be home with our perfection and imperfection.
Mhm.
What do you think's been the biggest lesson of you becoming a better man from the inside out, coming home to Scot in terms of deserving?
Well, I believe we have a soul, and I think with that soul comes a conscience.
Yeah,
Human beings are a higher life form for a reason. And this might sound strange, but it's the first thing that came to mind.
please.
I've been very forgiving. My wife and I have in common optimism and generosity.
Nice.
And the third leg of that stool of having a great marriage, above and beyond optimism and generosity, is getting each other. I know what goes on in that brain of hers because she's one of me. She and I get each other. We were talking about getting women versus attracting women, or getting a man versus attracting a man. That's not the same sense of getting that I mean there. I mean, we understand each other.
Yeah.
I can complete her sentences.
Mm.
For example, if one of us ever cheated on the other, I know I would hear about it the same day, because I wouldn't be able to shoulder that guilt. I'd have to confess to her. She's the same. Right? We also don't have ownership of each other. I suppose, I'm splitting hairs with this question. What was my great realization that I could be a better man? And I'm going to keep that relationship oriented, because I know that's where your audience is coming from, and hopefully going. Here's the dark one. The dark one is, I realize that most people who are inherently wanting to leave the world a better place, who believe in helping other people find pleasurable pursuits, being good to each other, don't understand evil. They excuse it away. Oh, this person just was raised wrong, or they just had a bad day, or maybe they just need to go to counseling. But I think we have a common friend named Dr. Mark Golston, who's one of the smartest people I know. He's a great psychiatrist, and he's basically the world's foremost leader in conflict management. And he defined evil better than anybody I've ever known. And if you meet him, he looks like Chris Wallace from the news, and his demeanor is more like Fred Rogers. So he's kind of a pattern interrupt to talk to, which I find incredibly entertaining. But he said that evil is depriving enjoyment from the pain and suffering of others. And I think most good people can't understand that. So we excuse it. But the problem with people who are no darn good, and who actually, at a soul level, I don't know if it's even a genetic level, I'm not that kind of scientist, okay?
Yeah.
But they understand what good people are like, because they've perverted that good to make the evil out of it. Everything that is a negative in this life, everything that's a sin, if you will, is a perversion of that which started out good. Otherwise, the universe would just implode if it was made of evil, right? So I think people who really are honestly not very nice people understand exactly how to pull the strings of people who are good.
Yeah.
So I excused my ex-wife's horrible behavior towards me and our oldest daughter for years because she was sick.
Mm.
And it was beautiful. It was a fantastic way to forgive her.
Yeah.
But it made me a doormat. She could run roughshod all over my life as long as I was not acknowledging, hey, you know what? You're not a very nice person.
Mm.
So there's a TV show on Netflix called Narcos.
Okay.
And I've actually interviewed the two guys for real. It was such a great show who
Wow.
did this. The two guys from the DEA down in Colombia in the early 90s who took down Pablo Escobar. And they said, in order to catch a guy who isn't playing by the rules, you got to throw out the rule book.
Yes.
You got to play dirty to catch a dirty person,
Yes.
even though you're on the good person's team. And as soon as I started standing up to evil, even within my own family, I got dominion over my reality to a much greater degree. That was the first thing I've learned as a man. The other thing I don't want to gloss over.
Yes.
We are too selfish, too focused on owning people in our lives. And, you know, not in a dark way like slavery, not literally. But I've come to the realization that every relationship in my life, regardless, is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not promised. I don't own it. To use a very roughshod term, it's a rental from the higher power.
Mm.
So if my wife chooses to leave me, it's not like my property has been taken away.
Right.
She has that choice at any time.
Yeah.
And I have that choice at any time. I've talked to people who've lost children, which is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And the only thing that keeps them sane is this concept.
Yeah. I was going to just say, and children too, but you said it first. Yeah.
But people you respect may one day wake up and decide they don't respect you. People you thought were friends may not be friends. And people may come in and out of your life. I would argue we're a little too transit nowadays. But this idea that I don't own relationships, that I should just show gratitude for the people in my life, and consider the relationship time I have with them a blessing. Of course, maximize it. Don't try to, don't take it for granted. Don't trivialize it.
Yeah.
But that's the other biggest lesson that I think I've learned over the past decade or so.
I love this, Scott. Optimism, generosity, getting her, not owning her, showing gratitude for her, knowing that the time with her is a blessing, and that is vice versa. That is the figure eight, the infinity loop between the two of you. She behaves that way and you behave that way.
Can I add one thing to it?
No. Yes, of course you can.
I'm gonna go Peter Falk on you. Can I ask you a question?
No.
Columbo. You're right. It's so totally redundant to say.
It's all good.
I come from a Judeo-Christian background.
Uh-huh.
And I have gotten more spiritual peace than ever before in my entire lifetime. Now, this is going way beyond the temple.
Yeah.
When I realized God doesn't owe me anything either.
Mm.
You know, the whole bless me culture you find in religious movements nowadays. Is, you know, if I do this, God's agreement with me is he must do what I think. No, I'm not God.
Yeah.
The God of the universe can do what the God of the universe will with me. I'm in the same human condition with everybody else. And you can rest in that if you allow yourself to. It's been the most spiritually freeing thing to even drop the freaking ownership mentality with the God of the universe.
Yeah. Or the entitlement mentality.
Right. And, you know, that may have trickled down from that I don't feel the ownership of, I don't feel like I have to control my relationships anymore, my way or the highway. I'm not sure I ever really was a manipulative, controlling jerk, but I think I've taken it to a new meta level. And I wanted to include that. I think that it goes all the way to the big guy.
Yeah. Or big guy
at the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like this because it takes, it allows us to be sovereign beings, right? We're not owed anything from our partner. We're not owed anything from God, the divine. And we can create, and then we take all the power, all the creativity, which can very soon turn into delight. I get to, I don't have to.
And cast off all the bitterness.
Correct.
And the resentment and the hate.
Yeah. And every relationship is for me to grow.
And the victimhood.
Say it one more time.
And the victimhood.
Yeah.
Out the door.
No, because
it doesn't exist.
We're bigger than our circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're saying the same thing two different ways. I think you're expanding it and I'm diminishing my dominion, which I feel is freeing.
Yeah.
You have your circle of things that you can influence, and that's where we should spend our time. Then there's a circle of things I can't influence, which is a waste of time.
Totally. Let it go.
Right. So dominion to me makes me the king. And there are things I am the king of. Those are the things I have personal control over. I can influence my wife loving me. I can influence my children respecting me. I can influence your audience liking me and wanting to keep listening, but I can't control it.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. That's where I'm coming from.
No. And it's, in my opinion, people can feel that. They can feel when you are attempting to manipulate and control, and not honor them. What's that?
One would think, but I think a lot of people have a blind spot there because they hear what they want to, they're told something they wanted to hear, and then they bypass the red flags.
Well, I can appreciate that. In the world that I inspire with intimacy, we don't live in our head. We don't live in our blind spots. We don't live in I call it sprinkles on top of the ice cream cone of shit. We are brave.
I'm never going to eat chocolate ice cream again. That's something I can't unsee.
Well, good. But because it's true.
Probably not caramel truffle ice cream either.
Oh, I really like truffle ice cream, but that's it. A lot of people spiritually bypass. Sometimes I think they haven't been taught how to feel. Other times I think they've chosen not to feel. But regardless, all that you're saying, you live in the heart, in my opinion. Optimism, generosity, getting her, because that's on the feeling level, not just the cognitive analysis brain level. And the heart wouldn't own, right? The heart would provide freedom and gratitude and see people as a blessing. So we're saying the same thing, I think, from two different ways of saying it or angles, but as always, coming back to the same place. So I want to go deeper into the one about getting her. And I get that it's different than getting versus attracting. And in fact, just yesterday and the day before on my coaching calls, I do group coaching calls and privates. I had been on social media listening to an interview with Jay Shetty. And he was being interviewed, and the gentleman, And so the gentleman was saying, Jay, what is it that you don't value? And he says, I don't value being understood by others. I value understanding myself. And I was like, whoa, that is brilliant, because I so often teach couples how to understand each other, get her, like you're saying, in the core relationship. But I think what he was referring to was he doesn't need to be understood by everybody to know what he knows, listen to his truth, honor and trust himself, understand himself, and move forward. And the last couple of days with my group coaching calls, it has just like exploded into this amazing conversation of how many times do we seek understanding, understand me, get me, and give away our power, as opposed to be in allowance if people get you or don't get you, understand you or don't understand you, and live in alignment with your heart's truth. Now that's life in general. But when it comes down to your primary relationship, you get her, you finish each other's sentences. Have there been things that you just don't get, or she doesn't get? And what have you done about that? How do you be about that?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. As you were talking, I thought of two other people's works, both of them well-known. You were talking about Jay Shetty. First thing I thought of was Stephen Covey, whose blockbuster book in the 80s, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is still relevant. And one of his 7 habits is seek first to understand before being understood.
Right.
So in other words, it's more important for me to get someone else than for them to get me.
Yeah.
The other person I thought of was Jordan Peterson. He's very controversial, but his 12 rules for life are very solid. They're very entertaining. If you read his book, it's a little long-winded sometimes. But one of his powerful ones, I think, especially, is assume everybody you meet has something to teach you.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that's really hard when you really aren't vibing with someone, you
Right.
know. And but there's a humility there
Mm-hmm.
that most people lack nowadays in our self-centered world.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't understand me. That's reminds me of, when NBA players who are making 25 million a year go, I feel disrespected because I was left off the Mount Rushmore of NBA. Well, I feel disrespected because you mentioned Mount Rushmore because it's racist. Everybody's so easily offended
Mm.
because they have a personal agenda that's a selfish agenda that they want to project to the world and force feed it.
Mm.
You will shut up, sit down, stay in your lane if you disagree with me. I don't want to hear disagreement. If you disagree with me, you're a fascist, right? You see it on Twitter. Both sides of the political aisle, not to get political, most people who are very, very partisan are only getting their news from one place. If they were to switch the other channel, they would see the other people saying the same thing in reverse.
Yeah.
These people are the fascists. These people are a threat to democracy. Here's a great topic that is a topic for another conversation. Democracy is not synonymous with freedom. So maybe this whole idea of a threat to democracy is a deflection from the greater topic of personal freedom, just say. But to answer your question, Emily and I bicker. Emily and I don't necessarily agree on everything. It's shocking how much we do agree on because we come from the same core belief system. And it's funny, if you have a set of plans, say architectural plans, you're going to build a very similar house with those plans. It's funny. I live in a neighborhood where almost every house is different from one another. It's a pretty nice neighborhood, except mine. There's one catty corner of the other block that the same builder built the same floor plan. And it drives me nuts, but not really. But I think that's kind of like what my wife and I are. She's feminine. Everything that is feminine in nature emanates from her because she's a woman. Yeah. I'm a man. Hopefully everything that's masculine in nature emanates from me. There's a Freudian slip from a dating coach. So she understands masculinity. She understands men. I understand women, and have had that put to the test. Anybody can do that. I've had women agree with me, even women who are not necessarily in line with my thinking and who want to be adversarial towards me end up agreeing with what I tell them about how I understand women. So there's precedent for that. So we both put in the work to understand that part, but then the rest of us are human. It's a mistake to think everything is masculine, everything is feminine. I have the saying, men are from earth, women are from earth. We're more alike than different. Our chromosomal structure is more alike than, say, similar to that of a chimpanzee or something. Yeah. So we come from that desire to know each other and to understand each other. So when we disagree about something, it's usually because one of us is in a bad mood or one of us thought the other one. Nowadays it's more like, I thought I told you this. No, you didn't tell me this. I'm sure I told you that. I mean, that's common. That's workable. It's nothing like the patterns I see sometimes, Alana, where I'll get a call from someone I would like coaching from me, and they go, well, my wife of 6 years said this to me last night. What did she mean by that? It's like, and I always give them the same answer. Well, I don't really know. Did you ask her? And it's like Homer Simpson. Oh, I could never do that. There's a lack of connection. Yeah. I was on a group coaching call recently where a guy said, you need to stop. You just dropped the word connection. I don't even know what that means. Whoa. And I had to explain it like an elementary school, so a 5-year-old could understand it. That's where a lot of people are. They don't even understand the concept of connection, let alone the importance of it. So I think Emily and I both come from that place. So the conflicts, the ways we don't understand each other aren't disconnects. They're simple bickering. A lot of times we're both in the mood for it, frankly, and the kids just learn to roll their eyes and go do something else at that point. But funny, even our children don't call each other names because that's just something that a precedent has not been set for in this house. There's always mutual respect. Wow, beautiful. So so I see the benefit, back to Jay for 1 second, and then let's go towards the getting versus attracting. So I see the benefit of not needing
to be understood by others, to know what you know about yourself, to understand yourself, and the huge freedom that provides. And what I'm hearing from you is that there's a certain level, maybe we could call it allowance of each other, because the foundations are solid, the core values are aligned, there's agreements in place where you don't hit below the belt, so that if there are moments of misunderstanding or lack of understanding, you still have an underlying connection that is the foundation, so you can get through these bickering moments with more grace and ease and not turn it into World War III.
Well, grace is a word that came to mind while you were talking. Grace and humility are often used together.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are so arrogant, they want to be right. There's this quest to be right, you have to agree with.
Yeah. And arrogance.
It's arrogant. It's arrogant as hell. And people will go, I'm not arrogant, you're arrogant. Just like everybody thinks they have a sense of humor. Bless their hearts, as we say in Texas.
I think arrogance, though, Scott, is really just insecurity, that they don't have the bravery or support to face and feel and heal. Every arrogant person I've ever met, conceited person I've ever met, deep down is very insecure. Maybe they've had everything handed to them on their own and they've never had to fall down to know they can get back up again. Maybe they've never been introduced to this thing called your heart and your soul, and they're living purely in the mind of ego. But even that is afraid to lose control. So that's just my way to not let arrogant people piss me off, because I just give them compassion. I don't even say anything out loud because they very rarely want to hear anything from me anyways, but I just give them compassion because I remember I have places in me that have been scared and insecure. So,
well, part of my journey towards greater humility is understanding that there's a lot of truth to there really only being two core emotions: fear versus love.
Yeah.
Arrogant sure ain't love,
That's for damn sure.
So I do think there are a lot of people out there who honestly think they're better than everybody else. And what trickles down from that in terms of insecurity, or perhaps a desire to force feed that on people, I think would cause some of the emotional wreckage that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something very important to someone who's going to seek first to understand, then be understood, and who doesn't have this need to be understood. And that's the humility to understand someone can disagree with me. Someone can have a different point of view, and it isn't an affront to my character. It isn't a personal attack because you disagree with me. You're allowed to do that. I don't have to fix that. I don't have to bail out that lifeboat. And you said something so magical, and I don't want anybody on this podcast not to have it underscored, because it was such a wonderful point. You just let them go. You just don't engage that. It's like, Will Rogers, don't have an argument with someone who's an idiot, because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. Immaturity, hatred, any kind of fear that applies to. I have a wonderful concept that I coined. It's wonderful because I coined it, of course.
Of course, own it.
Not to be arrogant or anything, right? That's why that was a joke. See what I did there?
That's good.
But the reason why I like it is because it's changed my life personally, and I happen to have thought of it. And I'm going to drop it on y'all. Okay, it's life changing, and I'd never heard anybody put it like this before. Some people have forfeited the right to be part of the adult conversation. So in other words, if someone, here's what dark triad people will do. Everybody who helps them get what they want in life, they're brilliantly sweet to. Oh, you're a wonderful person. But when someone comes along who stands in the way of something they want, that small percentage of people, they take them down viciously.
Yeah.
And they do it in private. With a phone call. Hey, everybody can't stand you. Did you know that everybody really wishes you would shut up? That's what they do. And it's immature. It's fear-based. And, they'll call you names. If you want, you can say things like, everybody, let's hear names, because you never will. But that's a very important thing to understand about the dark triad people. The people who are, socially well, flat out evil. They love to make other people feel pain socially.
And that's how they feed. They don't know how to
Yes.
source God on the inside or love or light. So they feed on others. And
And
I
a lot,
do my, they feed on others.
yes. Well, how do you stop getting them to feed on you?
Is I just talk to the hand and I move on.
Right.
The old me, though, I'll be very honest, the old me was like, no, but don't you understand? I'm a good person. Like I would engage.
Right. Well, that's
And
because we don't understand evil. We excuse it. We think, oh, they can't possibly mean that. They just must be having a bad day, or they just don't know. But see, here's the thing. When we walk away, society in this culture has told us we're quitters, we're losers, we just got the lower hand, we just got beat. You'll see on Twitter, you'll say something intelligent and someone will say something stupid, and everybody who's on their side of the aisle will go, oh, they just took you down.
no,
But they
you
didn't.
took the high road. You took the high road. And
Right.
what there is to do is be in communities. I'm assuming like your group coaching and mine, where we are the people that take the high road, who are not
Yes.
willing to blame or be bitter or be victims or
Yes.
get the last word in. And there's a group of us. So we don't even talk about the dark, whatever they're called, triads, or I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. We don't
Dark
even talk about
triad.
shit like that.
Yeah, well,
We don't even operate. Well, I mean, like,
People,
why?
yeah,
Of all the things we could talk about, why would I, unless I'm trying to help somebody disengage, then I'll talk about it. And I'll say, so what are you getting out of it? What is
Right.
the benefit? Or is it actually distract? If I need to do a teaching moment, I'll go there for a moment. But once they're unhooked and they're sourcing all of that love, light, God, inspiration, creativity, mission, vision, purpose from the inside out, we don't even need to talk about that anymore. We literally create beyond our circumstances. And it's almost like those people don't have the vibrational capacity to get in our world anymore. Once you really get the hang of it, you still have to be discerning and you still have to be aware, not like Pollyanna live in the clouds, but it's almost like they don't have the capacity to last in our field. Have you found that?
well, of course not. I mean, as soon as we have the same understanding of where they're coming from that they have of where we're coming from, in other words, once we simply realize there are people out there who are no darn good, then we take our personal power back. Consider the power found in considering someone else to not be part of the adult conversation. They're just not ready to talk to you. They're not up to the level. So
Yeah,
now
don't
I do need to bring that full circle, because remember we talked about humility,
Yeah.
and not force feeding anything, and not really, being arrogant. Okay.
Yeah.
So on the surface, that sounds like an arrogant statement, that I'm better than you. You're not an adult. You can't be in the conversation. But when you realize that there are rules of being in a social group and being allowed to stay there, it's just like you should be not allowed to remain in a department store if you're trying to steal everything on the shelves without paying for it.
Yeah.
There are basic rules of society. And one of them is, if you're going to treat people poorly, you don't deserve my attention.
Yes.
So I have people I won't even talk to. I've cut them out. You mentioned that we do the BMX racing. Well, sometimes you get people who are rather competitive. And during COVID, we had some alcoholic dads who kind of fell off the wagon, and that stuff came out. And a lot of this comes out when that happens.
Sure.
And at my track, I'm the guy who does the play-by-play announcing. So I have the mic. So a lot of people hallucinate that I have a lot of power over what goes on at that track. So some people who wanted power, because you know how youth sports can be, right? Wanted to take me down, which was, of course, weird, because all I do is go there and do stand-up comedy twice a week. I'm not even on the board of the track. So, and give kids cute nicknames. So I just ignored them. Like, everybody can't stand your announcing. The guy called me up. I go, well, I've got nothing but positive feedback. Who are these people? Doesn't matter. You just need to quit. Because I know more than you. I've been around here. I have to go now. This conversation's over. And then I avoid them. I don't talk to them. I don't talk to them.
Yeah.
And it's something that's freedom. And it's an understanding that weirdly, it's congruent with what I said earlier about not owning relationships. It's okay. This person's going to respond to me like that.
Yeah.
I don't need them to like me. I'm not that insecure. I know enough on a clinical level these days about how psychoses and mental illness works and stuff like that, and personality, to realize what's going on. But I'm not needy. You know, they're welcome to believe what they're going to believe. I'm just not going to entertain it, because it's like bullying a second grader. If you're a big kid in the schoolyard, if they cry and complain and cuss back, it's a lot more fun to pick on. If the person goes, yeah, you know, you're probably right, I am a pipsqueak. All right, anyway, can we go play kickball now? The bully is going to be powerless because their weaponry is ineffective.
Yeah.
So it is still this same mindset that other people have a right to be who they are, but I also have the right to be who I am and have a little dignity in that context.
Sure, and have your boundaries that work for you and your agreements that work for you. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, bringing this back full circle, I should be married to someone who has earned the right to be a part of the adult conversation.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when we are on the same team and we understand each other, that makes for a situation where we're glad to be together and these insecurities don't bubble up to the surface, even if they're still down there. And a lot of us have them. It's just nice if we don't exacerbate them with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Shifting to the other definition of getting versus attracting. And when we were just talking off camera before we started, we always love to talk about masculine energy and feminine energy when we get together. So what have you been noticing? I think you said in your Facebook group, they were starting to talk about this difference, getting versus attracting. Tell us.
Yeah. Okay. You're just going to segue. You know, when I first started at this, I think you were already at it. I started in late 2005. And back then, the men's dating and relationship movement was inextricably linked to the pickup artist community.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've always been friendly with those guys. I've been to the same masterminds as them. But they used to kind of poke fun at me for being a goody two-shoes because I was so relationship oriented, and I actually liked women. I actually really adore women. And it's amazing how few men really aren't confused about the differences between liking women and liking sex. You know, so a lot of the guys who are having trouble with women, and contrast that with guys who are naturals at making women adore them. It usually comes down to, if you like someone, they'll like you back. You have to make a friend to be a friend, right? Remember the little bee on it, the bumblebee. It seems so simple until it's just as an impossibility in your psyche, because you've been hurt, you've been damaged, these women have rejected you. So then you just want to get them.
Yeah.
You want to exact revenge by winning. And men are competition oriented, which is meant to be virtuous. But of course, you hear about toxic masculinity. They're ignoring virtuous masculinity, that the toxic masculinity is a perversion of.
Yes. And
the virtuous masculinity is, I want to be a provider, I want to be a protector, I want to be a leader who acts in the best interest of those people I love. I'm fomenting safety.
Yes.
Which gives women a sandbox in which to play with femininity and bring all the wonderful, good, joyful, playful, fun, hospitable things to the world that we all live for.
Yes.
Right? Men are the guardians of a woman's right to be feminine. So when we start arguing and thinking that your femininity is adversarial to my masculinity, that's against the basic divine design of masculinity and femininity being in partnership. I mean, my God, literally. How in the world can men and women not be designed from a divine inspirational level to be in partnership with each other? I mean, we fit, okay, physically. So the masculinity and femininity have to be the psycho-spiritual representation of that physical union, which I would say comes first. You know, that's the bigger, more meaningful at a cosmic level version of it. But lest I digress too much, when you think you've been hurt by the other gender, you're still lonely, you're still horny. There's still this deep yearning in your soul somewhere that you might not even understand anymore, because it's gotten so clouded by hurt and pain and resentment that you can't stand these people, but you still need them.
Yeah.
So you have the men going their own way, and I've never met a man going their own way who can stop talking about how much he can't stand women.
Interesting.
There's an irony. It's like, you really want to make them squeal and get all upset. Say, I thought you went your own way, but here you are still talking about women. And they'll just go, blah, that's just backwards. So what happens is, if I don't like these people, if I think they're no darn good, if they're out to get me, they're selfish, women are these horrible people, men are good people, or vice versa. A lot of women have been led to believe women can do no wrong, and men are all toxic, horrible, you've heard the tropes.
I've heard all of this.
Yeah.
I don't agree with all of this, but yeah, I'm
Of
listening.
course not. I know. I wouldn't even dare talk about it with your audience if I thought it wasn't going to be, people weren't going to nod their heads.
Yeah.
So if you're coming at it from that perspective, then the object is to win. The object is to acquire.
Yeah.
I am going to use tips, tactics, and tricks to get this woman to sleep with me so I can get laid. I don't care about her. I don't need to understand her. Just don't try to understand them. Just tie a rope and brand them. Yeehaw, It's like the rawhide method of getting, a date, right?
My God.
I just coined that on the spot for you.
Okay, I'm like, is that what it's like to live in Texas? And
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, look where you're living nowadays.
I know, Wyoming. Yeah.
That's Texas on steroids from the rawhide perspective. All right. So anyway, before we digress too far, even though we're having way too much fun, what if I liked women? What if I sought to understand before being understood?
Yeah.
It seems like that doesn't give you any personal power if you're a man who's been hurt, or if you're a woman who's been hurt. But what happens is it's leadership. It isn't a reactive victimhood, fear-based place.
Yes.
Whereas getting women, I need you to fulfill my personal needs and desires. Oh boy, does this sell in the dating space for both women and men. Okay, gay and straight. Here's 3 simple words you can whisper in their ear to get them to do your bidding for you. Oh man, you'll be a millionaire if you have that website. You'll sell to everybody. But that's not how it works.
Yes.
If I try to acquire them, get women, I mean, I may have women who have low self-esteem. It may become a power struggle because I'm meeting women who aren't exactly like me, and they're, that's why, I mean, good grief, Alana, I'm on a roll here. I apologize. Just cut me off anytime. These sugar daddy, sugar baby sites, these arrangement sites online where guys are signing up to throw money at chicks just so that they hope they'll get laid, and then they're surprised when they get scammed. Really? That's 2 people trying to get.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Instead of attracting. So if I instead am a provider, protector, presider who acts in the best interest of women and my own children, if I mean well, if I want to leave this world a better place, if I'm not one of these evil people, and I really honestly believe that if I do those things, the women who aren't broken out there will respond powerfully to me. I don't need a whole lot of practice. I don't need a whole lot of time before I see the reality of that blossom towards me. And I'm not before me, towards me. Brilliant. But so many people, men and women, are so closed off to that idea that they won't even give it a chance. And that's what I mean by trying to get someone versus attracting. Attracting. Deserve what you want. I need to be the kind of person a woman will be attracted, the kind of person a woman's looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the women like me because I like them. I'm trying to do right by them. They try to do right by me. Now, listen, we've already talked about the non-player characters out there who are flat out evil. They forfeited the right to be part of the adult conversation. I'm not going to let it hurt me. I'm not going to let it victimize me. I don't need that person to understand me. That person needs me to them to understand me in order to work their business.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here. And it's very curious too, because you speak so much about being in your masculine, but
Hmm.
to me, attracting is a feminine energy.
Well,
Like,
doesn't masculinity attract femininity and vice versa?
no, but I'm saying your balance within yourself has, maybe it's an unconscious competence in you, but to be
Ah,
masculine, and we're going to make it a conscious competence now because you have lots of competences, but the,
educate me. I have something to learn from everybody I meet. Talk to me.
me too. Getting would be masculine energy, go get, right? Lead, guide, get, do. For goodness sakes, mothers are in masculine energy, doing all day long, right? Feminine energy is receptive, allowing, inviting, welcoming. That's feminine energy. And in my opinion, we all have all within ourselves. You have more masculine than feminine. I have more feminine than masculine because you're a guy, I'm a chick, right? However, both of us have both energies inside. And so what you're saying is a lot about what I talk about, more of a noble badass or a conscious evolution in the masculine, is that their feminine energy, although they might have more masculine than feminine, their feminine energy is valuable to receive the promotion, to receive money, to receive a compliment, to attract a quality woman. That's a feminine action of energy. Now that he's masculine, he's certain, he's solid, he's unwavering. He still has that masculine energy there as well. But I like that what we're saying is that we're awakening the best within us all, the best masculine energy within me, not to go take a client or take somebody and tell them a lie, right? My masculine energy, we're asking my masculine energy to evolve into consciousness and my feminine energy to evolve into consciousness within myself, so that that internal communion or union is then holographically projected into the field, and I will attract that same dynamic within, without, which is exactly what you're saying. I encourage the gentleman that you're sharing this conversation with getting versus attracting, let them know that they're part of the, see, your presupposition is we've got to go from all women are screwy, meaning, blah, 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 to like, I like women. That's a big ask on top of a wounded heart.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of short coding going on in what I told you because,
but one of the ways to help them, just giving you a little sprinkles here so you can tell them from, this is from Alana. One of the ways to be, there's a lot of deeper work to do. We both know this, but one of the ways to go from, all women hurt me and women are bad or this kind, is to realize, oh my God, my own internal feminine energy can attract a great life, a great woman, a great promotion. That's actually my own feminine energy. And I like that about myself. So maybe there's something about women to like too. It can be a portal for them to soften the bitterness and see from a new point of view that it's not masculine energy is good or bad or feminine energy is good or bad. It's the unconscious misuse of it, perversion of it, like you said, that hurts ourselves and hurts others. If we don't attract our own little you inside of our heart and say, hey, dude, or lady, you have every right to be scared. Big higher self here. I got you. That's a feminine energy that we're doing on our inside. We need to be able to soothe ourselves, listen to ourselves, invite truth from ourselves, receive wisdom from ourselves. That's the feminine energy inside. And then we take it into our masculine energy and execute, right? So I love what you're saying. And was just curious if you were actually asking men to attract, welcome, invite, receive a high quality woman because they were willing to evolve themselves and have a better relationship with their own femininity. I didn't know if you.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, okay. It's not going to go well, but you can.
Maybe not fully, but I'm just going to ask two questions. First of all, sure. This is probably related more to what you said about 3 or 4 minutes ago, but it popped into my mind. Can being goal-oriented be benevolent? Because you were talking about being a masculine energy.
Well, we talked about being an unconscious or conscious masculine energy or an unconscious or conscious feminine energy.
Right.
So can being goal-oriented come from evil? Absolutely.
Sure.
Can it come from?
Does it necessarily come from?
No, can it come from nobility? Absolutely.
So in other words, if someone's goal is to provide, protect from my family, that would be I know the best way to do this, and they agree to that. They follow my leadership. That would be benevolent, but it would still be masculine, go-getter.
Totally. Yeah, because the source is love, not fear.
Now, where I'm going to disagree with you is I'm not convinced. How's that for me being diplomatic? I'm not convinced all energy in our humanity is either masculine or feminine by nature. I think some of it is simply human. So I think I would say that some of the traits and behaviors you're talking about aren't necessarily tied to whether my masculinity is a provider, protector, presider, enabler of feminine energy, or a woman's desire to bring love, joy, peace, and hospitality to them and fun. I would think it's more along the lines of wondering aloud whether compassion is masculine or feminine, whether intelligence is masculine or feminine, or whether kindness is masculine or feminine. And a lot of these guys out there are on their masculinity sites going, women don't want a kind man. They'll think you're a pusswad and they won't respect you anymore. It's like, no. They don't want Mr. Nice Guy. They don't want someone who's a doormat because he's failing to provide that aura of safety and security. That there's no confidence being inspired there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
That's masculine. But so I think honesty, all those things are not masculine or feminine. They're human, and it can be the vice, or it can be the pervert. I mean, it can be a virtue, or it can be the perverted vice of that.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that the nexus of you and I not being on the same page is there. I don't necessarily believe that everything has to be put into a silo of masculine or feminine simply because it's part of our nature. But I know they're different.
There's masculine, there's masculine and masculinity, as you said, and femininity, but that's different than the energy. So the energy moves, but these are qualities like compassion. That's not what I'm talking about. Qualities like grace. And if anything, when you integrate duality, that's when you come into these qualities like grace or compassion or appreciation. That's actually the integration of two dualities is when
I would see it as independent of, not the integration of.
Okay.
That's how I talk about it. But I think really that's almost semantical, because if we talk about our human, actually I'm trying to be conciliatory. It's my nature, probably my feminine nature. I mean, if we're trying to do right, if we're trying to take our energy and provide for the common good of humanity, then it may be a merging of everything within us that makes us human. I understand that we're all energy. I just think that I'm not ready. I'm not in a position to see everything as masculine or feminine. And see, I would argue also that keeps men and women apart. If we start looking at the commonality between our energy as humans, and that only a piece of it is masculine and feminine, then we realize we actually have more in common than we have differences.
But that's what I just said about the integration. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
The integration.
I'm not calling it an integration of masculine and femininity. I'm calling it a whole set of independent traits above and beyond. I see it masculine. I see our sexually attractive nature as a layer on top of our humanity, perhaps within it. Either way.
I totally missed what you just said there. But if
in other words, I see a purpose to masculinity and femininity.
True.
Masculinity and femininity exist to catalyze sexual attraction. That's why they're there. Because without sexual attraction, we don't procreate and we die out. So there's a movement afoot in the world.
That's the only reason you think there's masculine and feminine?
Hear me out. There's a movement afoot to erase masculinity as a concept and call it a social construct. The direct result of that is a lower birth rate, less heterosexual procreation. So in a way, you see at the macro level societal proof of what I'm talking about. But if you think about it, if you believe there's masculine and feminine, there's male and female procreate. So it can't just be physical. There can't just be physical genital differences that get us to procreate. There has to be a psychosexual component that gets us to be attracted to each other. And that sexual polarization is between masculinity and femininity.
I think that the terms you're using are what's making the problem here, Scott, because masculinity and femininity is different than masculine energy and feminine energy.
Oh, I mean, I think you can express masculine or feminine energy at times, but
I'm
I
saying,
think it's the masculinity that's going to attract the feminine. I think
okay, but that's not what
we
I
got to be
said
good,
at
decent
all.
human being to have a relationship.
Do you have any idea how many times you interrupt me? Okay, I'm just going to shut up and you can finish your sentence because I'm getting a little frustrated because I'm trying to present why we're not on the same page and then I'm getting interrupted.
Go ahead.
Masculinity and femininity is different than masculine energy and feminine energy. And this whole conversation, it seems like I've triggered you. I'm sorry. But what I'm saying is this idea of attracting versus getting is a feminine energy, not femininity, a feminine energy. And if a man doesn't know how to have feminine energy, he can't receive love. He can't receive money. He can't attract a woman. That is not a masculine energy, not masculinity, masculine energy action. Masculine energy action isn't good, bad, right, wrong. It's just an action of getting, sometimes for the good, sometimes not for the good. It's just a way of energy happening. Please don't interrupt me. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. And feminine energy isn't femininity. It's feminine energy, the receptivity of receiving a hug, receiving a promotion, receiving the attraction of a woman to come to you versus you getting her. Has nothing to do with masculinity or femininity. It's an energetic level that lives within us all. It's in the friggin' yin yang symbol. It's been around for thousands of years before either of you and I were even made. So that is the core basis of the universe. And once integrated, comes into beautiful words that you've used like grace and compassion and appreciation that rise above. They are the integration of all of these energies. So I think we're saying the same thing. And I think maybe the issue is that there's a confusion between masculinity, femininity, and we're talking about sexuality. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's a man who can be present, who doesn't need anything on the outside that is super fucking hot and attractive to a woman, but it's actually not his masculine energy going to get her. It's actually his ability to be present that literally is alluring to her, but that's a feminine energy, not a femininity. So there's nothing to be afraid of having masculine and feminine energies within ourselves. We all have them within ourselves. That's how we're made. Did that clear up anything that maybe you were misunderstanding?
I don't think I'm misunderstanding anything. We're just going to have to disagree. But see, here's the thing. I don't think being present is male or female. I think it's human.
Yes, but in the idea of getting versus attracting, if we place presence into what you're just trying to talk about with your Facebook group between getting and attracting, and you want them to attract, not get, when they're being present and attracting, that's actually receptive, inviting, attractive.
So you're talking about this difference between, you're talking about masculinity being penetrative.
No, I'm talking about masculine energy, not masculinity.
All right. Well, I'm still unclear on how masculine energy doesn't come from core masculinity.
Say it one more time. You're not sure how what comes from who?
I'm not sure how. Well, let me put it this way. I'm not sure how love energy isn't rooted in love.
True. I agree. Love is love. Yeah, we're on the same page.
So I don't understand how masculine energy wouldn't be rooted in masculinity. I don't understand how something that is termed masculine. Well, hold on a second. You didn't want to be interrupted.
And I have masculine energy.
Well, let me get the thought out.
Okay.
I believe that men and women can exhibit masculine energy or feminine energy as they choose. Even in a homosexual relationship, someone is going to be the masculine and someone's going to be the feminine to attract each other sexually. So it isn't indelibly tied to being male or female.
Same. Now we're saying the same thing. Yep.
Okay. But I don't believe that some of the traits you're talking about are inherently necessarily needing to be slotted into male or female. Like, I don't believe.
Say male or female, though. That's the thing. That's where the misunderstanding is, I think.
But see, it has to be rooted in something.
It's energy.
Well, I mean, if masculine energy is called, I mean, the descriptor, this is going to be boring to this audience, but I
don't know. I think they're happy that we're arguing. It's wonderful.
Okay. And the good news is we're still going to be friends after.
Totally.
And I mean, you know, I don't need you to agree with me, or else the first hour of this was moot, right?
Right.
I believe that if we were neuter, we would still have personality.
Okay.
We would still have energy. If there was no such thing as male or female, we would still be human.
Okay.
So in other words, what I'm saying is I don't believe, again, you know, who's going to prove any of this, right? It's all spiritual. It's a religious argument we're having.
I think it's science, but okay.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's scientific elements to it, but as far as certain elements, certain traits, certain virtues, certain behaviors, I don't believe they have to be masculine or feminine energy. I think they can just be human energy.
Okay, that's fine.
So in other words, if I am standing in the gap and attempting to understand a woman before judging her, I think I'm practicing human virtue. I don't think I'm in my feminine or in my masculine. That's the difference between what we're talking about.
But if you were
masculine energy or feminine energy has to, to me, masculinity and femininity, I don't want to complicate it. I think too many people try to make it too complicated. Masculinity and femininity exist for the purpose of catalyzing sexuality so we procreate. If that sounds a little cold, I understand that, but there's a lot of things in life that are stone cold, very simple. I think if you look at the societal quest to neuter masculinity, meanwhile, they're not trying to neuter feminine. So what is it about masculinity that's so scary? Well, it's the providing, protecting, and having dominion. It's the strength of it. Because then if we can get men to stop being the head of the family, such a cat.
This is Muffin.
Yeah. Then what's going to stand in the gap? The government. So if we can nullify masculinity, because then what happens is sexual attraction falls by the wayside and the family unit falls apart. So what happens is, if a lot of times we as men, Alana, are being told, stop being toxic masculine. And the conclusion that we're drawing, and they're not giving us anything to replace it with. Now, we could talk about masculine energy versus masculinity, feminine energy versus femininity, but I'm going to stand by my belief that feminine energy has to emulate from a root foundational core of femininity and vice versa.
And I'm saying you have both inside and we disagree, and that's okay.
Well, I think you can have both inside. I think you can exhibit traits of both. I don't think you have to be purely, I think it's almost a decision to be masculine or feminine. But I think it's also rooted in your gender. So if you have a situation where a man is told you can't be masculine anymore, but he's given nothing to replace it with, the subtle indication there is, well, you need to be more feminine. You need to have more feminine energy, because women, feminine energy it's like you mentioned the yin and the yang. It's a logical fallacy to say that because yin and yang is polar opposites, that if something is a polar opposite, they have to be a polar opposite in every other way too. To wit, masculinity and femininity, one has to be good and one has to be bad. One has to be hot, one has to be cold. No, masculinity and femininity exist as polarizing forces in and of themselves without any other qualification. They're not good or bad inherently. They're not hot or cold inherently. They're not black or white inherently. They're just simply masculine and feminine. So what do masculinity and femininity do? What do they catalyze? What is the polarity? It's obviously sexual attraction. Masculine and feminine attract each other sexually. When a woman says, I don't feel it for you, she's not sexually attracted. And 100% of the time, that guy is being nice, but he's not showing, wait for it, masculine energy.
I totally disagree, 100% of everything.
Okay.
But that's okay.
What's worked for me, I mean, it's
totally
magic.
fine. This is like one of the most curious conversations I've ever had with you in the last 15 years, because I really feel like I'm so on a different like dimensional wavelengthy thing. Like I don't get it. Like,
well, I'm very practical about this.
I don't have like this whole toxic masculine, like the world you live in where they are. I don't say all this shit to men.
No, of course you don't. You're wonderful.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I don't
know. There's a whole world out there where it's happening.
Well, it's not the I guess what I'm getting is that I'm not operating in the world you're operating in anymore. Like, I don't even have these conversations. I'm having conversations about what's right about men, what's right about masculinity, what's right about femininity,
well, of course.
What's right about forgiving.
Well, listen, I've got to meet people where they come to me.
What's that?
I got to meet people where they come to me.
I know, but this is not where people come to me. We don't have these,
you have a different audience than I do.
Yeah, we don't talk about this, and I'm so sorry that there's. It kind of goes back to like, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour ago, when we were like, we don't engage with those people. When you said, Alana, like you underscored something, I said, like she walked away. Like, I don't even have the conversation about toxic masculinity because I don't think men are bad.
No.
I do believe there are misuse of masculine energy by women or men.
Or there's also toxic femininity, which never gets talked about.
Totally a misuse of this alluring, attractive energy could be misused by a man as well, right? Like, basically, I would rather have a conversation about how can we all become more conscious? How can we all evolve? How can we all have healthier relationships within ourselves? And how can we have those healthier relationships with each other? And instead of spending my energy pushing against what I don't like, I would rather spend my energy focused on what I choose to create. And it is creating beyond my circumstances. It is creating beyond the conversations that annoy me. It is creating beyond a world that is going to bicker about who's right and who's wrong. I don't care. I just care about what works.
We agree
I care about love. I care about healing hearts. I care about doing the right thing. I care about leaving a positive imprints on the planet. And I care about loving this is the way I look at it, loving my masculine inside, who has been too afraid to step up, show up, speak up. And from my higher self go, hey, inner dude, we got this. And then my little girl inside who might feel afraid of receiving her worth or deserving a great man. My higher self would say to my little girl inside, hey, you deserve that. And then all of a sudden inside, these wounded little boys and girls become this inner king and queen, conscious, noble, doing good. And there's like a communion on the inside. And that communion on the inside tends to be projected into relationships that are really contributory to both people on the outside. And I don't want to hang around with women that are mean to men. I don't want to hang around with women that are, or men that are mean to women. I'm sorry.
Listen, I know you didn't want to be interrupted. You've said your piece. You're on a hell of a roll. I got to clarify something,
Okay.
If this is anti-Stephen Covey and, then so be it. But I do have to clarify something. The angry people can't stand me, Alana. They're not my customers. The men going their own way who can't stand women, they need me not to exist. Okay.
But you do.
Well, yeah, but listen, I believe that part of finding a solution is knowing what the hell the problem is. Okay, again, I'm coming from a pragmatic situation. So I have a lot of guys who are in need of healing from being told that their masculinity is toxic and that when it's not.
Right.
That they don't have a right to exist, is what I'm saying. Okay. And there's a lot of women who have been hurt by toxic men who need to understand we're not all like that guy.
Totally.
Right. Now hold on, because now I'm going to piss you off.
Wait a minute. We were totally lying there for a second.
No. We're still going to disagree.
Okay.
But in a fun way, because I think this is a conversation that needs to be had. I hope we don't explode too many people's heads. I am going to piss you off because I'm going to say something I firmly believe that it's a hill I would die on.
Okay.
My wife is gritty, strong-willed, confident, and has an attitude of accomplishment and is not about to be a victim.
Yeah. Why would that be?
My 10-year-old daughter has been a champion BMX racer, beating the boys crashing sometimes violently with a helmet on, scuffed up, tough.
Yeah.
She is resilient in ways that most adult men aren't. She doesn't take any crap off anybody. She's been given carte blanche to trash talk boys on the gate since she was 5 years old in clip shoes in the 5 and under girl expert class. Now I'm going to piss you off.
Okay. I was like, go Sarah, but okay.
Oh yeah. I believe it would be an insult to those 2 favorite women in my life to claim that's masculine energy. Because I think that would be patriarchal as shit.
Oh,
I think it's human energy. I think you can be all woman, all feminine, all the time, and still be all those things, because I think all those things have been suppressed in women for years in the name of it being masculine energy, when really it's human energy. And see, that's a hill I'll die on. And hopefully that puts my perspective in place for you. Maybe we can agree on that. Because
we still disagree, but that's okay. You can point your finger all you want at me. And
I'm passionate about this, like you are.
No, it's fine.
I believe it. Yeah.
You're not going to ruffle my feathers. We can disagree. It's okay. Mother Gaia is one badass. Okay. We've polluted her. We've done all this shit, and she's motherfucking badass. Okay. She's strong, and she's Mother Gaia. So feminine energy can be super, super strong. And as we go from the feminine energy into the masculine energy, we talked a lot about integration here.
But see, I think it's human energy. I don't think it's masculine or feminine. Femininity. If it can flow both ways, then it's neither.
But that's integration. And you said you didn't believe in that. Well,
all right. You're talking about integration. I'm talking about masculinity and femininity not being a holistic human encompassment.
I think we're saying the same thing, Scott, just in different.
We're not. That's where I just capsulized where we're different. I just don't believe everything has to be masculine or feminine. You're saying it all kind of interwoven and it's part of our integral being. And I do think that, well, I heard someone put it so elegantly one time. We are sex. So if you want to get through to my thick head, maybe the best way, what I've learned here today is, if I believe we are sex, then how can I possibly not believe that not everything doesn't come down to masculine and feminine energy? I think that would be a solid point to me.
I don't think you have a thick head. I've enjoyed our feisty conversation. If we are creation itself, then creation comes from the spark of creation of feminine energy into the masculine execution of that idea of inspiration on the planet. That's how I see things, as energy.
Well, and listen, I do honestly believe that that we can exhibit masculine and feminine energy. I think a lot of times the things that are supposed to be masculine or feminine are very negotiable, because they're not necessarily tied to attraction. If I don't provide, protect, and preside and lead, I'm going to be put in the just be friend zone by everyone. The thing about women is that they're physically nice looking, guys will have sex with them. That's a harsh reality. Okay. But I think when men are taken by a woman, she has those feminine energy traits of love and joy and peace and nurturing. Those are the things that draw. We get horny for women when they're like that.
You don't get horny for watching your daughter. I mean, obviously you're not your daughter, but let's say, sorry, forgive me, but
all right, now you lost me.
The energy of you were shaking your finger in my face, so passionate about the strength of your wife, the strength of your daughter, the strength of those women exhibiting these behaviors. I say that passion is a flavor of turn on. To be able to respect a woman's strength, and you be so passionate that you die on the hill of patriarchy or whatever the hell you said. Like, I'd like you to consider.
I'm not going to die on a hill of patriarchy.
Not whatever you just said. I'd like you to consider that there's other qualities other than just the softer feminine loving qualities that are very attractive about a woman. And I'd like you to consider that there's other qualities about a man other than the providing and the protecting, etc., that are more in the receptive, feminine, energetic, not feminine energetic qualities about a man that are very attractive to women. They make us.
Here's how I talk about
in all of us that attracts us to everybody. Still the polarity. I'm in agreement with the polarity, but it's not just this or just that.
I think some people can't stand people who are gritty and tough. I think some people revel in victimhood together.
But we're not talking about the unconscious ones. We're talking about the conscious ones.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I think it's a personal preference. It's like some couples may bond over arguing constantly. Like, if you've ever read the work of Mill Millington, that he and his love of his life love to bicker constantly. I don't, it's not my flavor.
Yeah, same.
Here's what I teach. You'll probably think I'm not evolved or something, but I've come to this conclusion, and it's a claim.
Please don't assume and say that about me, but
I won't. Okay, fine. I believe in connectable traits. I believe there are certain human traits that are universally attractive to both male and female.
I agree.
Okay, but I don't think they're male or female. I think my guy friends, my business partners, and my female friends all are attracted the same way. Okay, let me just put it this way.
Kindness.
I would like a sickly, dishonest, black-hearted, impatient person who's habitually late for a partner. Said nobody ever.
Yes.
Okay. So I think there are certain check boxes that we check on a human level, that if we go on a first date, we're likely to like each other,
yes,
even if we're two earthworms. So if I'm a kind person, like a pox on all these people who think men shouldn't be kind because that's feminine. Kind, honest, optimistic. I think sometimes too pessimistic people can bond to, but I would agree with you, they're broken. Okay. Healthy. The list goes on. There are things that if you exhibit that trait,
yeah,
you have built a foundation where as humans, we're going to like each other, right? Stubborn as opposed to open-minded, right? Unless you're stubborn in the same way, you'll get along. And I think we've hopefully exhibited that we're both, open-minded on this call. So I think when people go out and meet each other, they'll either like each other or feel more compelled to want to spend more time with each other, be more charmed by each other based on those human traits. I call those connectable traits. I think men and women should work on checking all those boxes before they even try to go out and sexually attract anybody. Okay. So then what happens is you layer on top of that connectability. I mean, this isn't as complicated as it sounds. Am I hot for you? I have some great friends who check all those connectable boxes, but I don't want to screw them. So my wife comes along and she's got the most wonderful giggle ever. And my wife's smile lights up 1,000 rooms.
Yeah.
And she's fun and she wants to play and she lifts stress off of me. You said something so wonderful in one of my podcasts one time. The feminine recharges the batteries of the warrior.
Yes.
See, now that's where you and I are on the same page. That's masculine. That's to me what masculine feminine energy looks like. It's the recharging, My masculine energy powers a woman to be feminine without fear. We are fear lifting beings. We're not fear causing beings. That would be toxic, right? That's the perversion of it. Whereas femininity is masculinity recharging energy. But I think it's nice if we're both honest too. So the gritty, there's some women, Alana, who if they're gritty enough and confident enough, they're going to scare away 95% of the men because the men can't match that energy.
True.
So if you're a woman who's scaring away 95% of men, it's hard for me to call that masculine energy if men can't do it. I think it's a high level of human energy where a woman requires a man who can stand toe to toe with that, which to me is evidence it's not masculine or feminine. It's human, but I don't think it's universally attractive. I think when certain people are gritty and resilient, I think it's very quick on their feet. I think it's confident. I don't think those are masculine, feminine is confident masculine or feminine? No, it's human. So,
all right, that is a great thing that we disagree on, and I love you, and I totally disagree. Keep going.
Oh no, I think I'm kind of done, but I think, you know, you have that feminine level. And then there's another level we haven't even talked about, we don't have time to talk about, which is, are we fundamentally compatible with our belief systems and how we go about doing things and our habits and the God we pray to and the lever we vote, you know, pull in the voting booth and the kind of food we eat and how we spend money.
Yep.
Those aren't masculine or feminine either.
Well, those are compatibility traits. I totally agree with that.
So I'm just thinking that I
Those
don't
are
think they're
necessary.
masculine or feminine, but I think they're part of who you are internally. So, I mean, I think if you're going to weave masculinity into femininity, I could see how you could make an argument for even those, because you'd almost have to, because you're saying it's all interwoven and holistic. But I mean, that would be an interesting PhD, you know, thesis. Yeah, it'd be an interesting project for his PhD. It'd probably get a Nobel Prize if you figure that one out.
Well, I might be on my way, because I've loved this conversation. I love that we can agree to disagree. I love that we can be curious about each other's point of view. And I think it's great that there's an ideal client for you. There's an ideal client for me. It would not make logical sense if we were both everybody was totally the same. So I think the people that resonate with the way I share about the energy and the way you share about masculine and feminine, it's perfect. It's totally perfect.
Alana, you and I both help people find love and maximize their relationships. So we're both doing something right.
Totally. And we're both dealing with healing hearts, being our best selves, and letting go of helping people heal from those toxic relationships and so that they can find healthy love. You're walking your talk with healthy love, and proud of your wife and your daughter, which always makes me so happy to hear. So I still want to come circle all the way back. Deserve what you want. This wonderful, what he really adores about his partner: optimism, generosity, getting her, no ownership, showing gratitude, all the time with her is a blessing. Even God doesn't owe you. And that every relationship has, you know, something to teach you, even ours.
I have one question. Maybe you can answer this for me.
Sure. Maybe not.
You've read David Data's Way of the Superior Man.
Yeah.
Why is beer feminine?
Beer?
Yes.
I don't remember
that. It goes
that.
on in the book about beer being feminine.
I don't remember that part. I don't know.
Isn't that weird? I need an explanation from David Data on why beer is feminine. The only thing I can come up with is because beer soothes us and lightens us up and causes us to be more playful. But I don't understand why Scotch wouldn't be even more feminine, and bourbon even more so. Give me a good Pappy Van Winkle and my feminine energy is lit up, baby.
Oh my God, I love whiskey. I don't remember that part. So that we will leave that with a cliffhanger then about well, David obviously writes volumes on this stuff. And
I know.
I've been trained by him. I've been trained by Suzanne and Sachin.
Well, I'm not sure he would agree with either of us, but you know.
Right. And I also
he would bring it'd be like the end of The Good, Bad, and the Ugly when the three of them are facing off and they don't know which one to shoot. Yeah. David Data were in here. David Data were in on this.
Yeah,
it's all in the name of fun.
We would have the second hour of this if he was here. But I want to thank you for being open to my point of view. Thank you for being open, even though you don't agree. That's okay. I think getting versus attracting is really showing the fullness of what I call a noble badass. He's able to protect and provide, but he's also able to receive. He's not going to waver. He can just stand there and allow and receive and attract. To me, the combination of both of those qualities within a man is the sexiest. I want to be able to know that I can approach him and he can just stand there. To me, that's super sexy. And it is not effeminate to a man who wants to be masculine whatsoever. I think it's a superpower. And I think you're teaching a superpower to these guys, even if the why. Yeah, even if the why is different, even though if we explain it different, the outcome, the result is the same. We're just getting there from two separate places, but we're going to the same place. And I'm 100% in agreement with what you're teaching them.
Yeah, I don't think that's fear. The fear would be the closed off and the coercion, where the love would be the openness. Yeah, so I think I see it as a completely different yin yang human nature element.
Yes, well, there's tons of dualities. Pain, pleasure, up, down.
Well, masculine men who know how to love are sexy as hell.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we can agree on that.
100%. Yeah.
But I wouldn't call love feminine.
keeping your heart open. I wouldn't call masculine or feminine, but attracting versus penetrating vaginas and penises. I don't know. That's how I see it.
Well, no, listen. Yeah, the penetrative energy. It's all metaphoric for that. I agree. That I agree with. Yeah, we don't have time to talk about that. But I do agree with that. I think another great question for another podcast is vulnerability really feminine? No, another podcast.
Okay.
Because men don't like to talk about vulnerability.
Well, I can go on for ages about vulnerability.
Oh, me too. If the more vulnerable a man knows how to be, the sexier he is. Because vulnerability is only one word in the English language. It could be either a turtle crossing the highway, or I'm going to grab my balls, take the risk involved with asking a woman out and not care whether I'm rejected or accepted. I'm just going to make this happen, knowing the outcome might not be the best. Brene Brown stuff. I think we need two different words for vulnerability. But I'm not sure either is masculine or feminine, which brings us back full circle to where we disagree.
All right, we're not gonna torture you with another hour of disagreement, but we appreciate your willingness to be with us on this conversation. Just on one level, thanks for staying with us the whole time and allowing disagreements. It's okay to disagree and still stay connected. It's okay to disagree and have two different points of view, and it's okay to keep your heart open and disagree. And so that as an example, I ask you to take with you. I also ask you to take with you anything that sparked feistiness in you, alignment in you, passion in you, curiosity in you, which hopefully we did a lot of today. And just take 5 minutes after this conversation, get your journal out and just write down what's coming up for you, because above all, we are both here to support you in being your best self so you can have your best relationships. And if something got stirred up in you that can then be healed, processed, integrated into you having your heart even more open and being your even greater self, then we did our job. So please go to scotmckay.net. I'm going to spell that for you. SCOTMCKAY. I'll put it in the show notes as well to learn more about what Scot does. And if they want to know about what Emily does too, do you have something on your site about Emily, or where should we send them for her?
Emily, you can go to keystobliss.com/free and get her free book. Okay?
All right.
I want to say something.
Yeah, please.
Do you know what I think the best thing about being an open-minded person is?
Tell me.
Is you respect anyone you disagree with as long as they can defend their position. If they go ad hominem on you and their answer is, well, you're an idiot, well, then they're no longer part of the adult conversation. And I appreciate the fact that we had an adult conversation.
Yeah, it's really great. Thank you. I agree. I agree that over 15 years and all the ways we've supported one another, grown and learned, and featured each other in our communities, that we continue to evolve.
I love people who can defend their position if they disagree with me.
Awesome.
I think it's fantastic.
I
also make sure I can defend my position before I go traipsing around with it.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for being with us, everyone. Stay with me. I'll say my official
Namaste.
in a second. Yes, namaste to all of you, and to all of you intimate conversation listeners. Ultimately, it all comes down to your intimate relationship with yourself, so that you know what you know, you hear your truth, and you live by that. Thank you for doing that deep inner work to be you. Thank you for joining us for another edgy, transparent episode. I want you to be able to do more, stress less, feel happier, like I have with Magic Mind. So for Intimate Conversations listeners, you can get 40% off with my code INTIMATE20 when you go to magicmind.co/intimate. You're going to feel amazing, I promise. Thank you for being who you are. I love the shit out of you. Until next time, I've got your back.